Good evening, everyone. It's dark, but it's time. Tonight we're going to play Book 4 of the Lone Wolf Kai series Definitive Edition by Joe Dever, the Chasm of Doom. So let's start with the story so far. In the northern land of Summerlawn, for centuries it had been customary for its people to send gifted children to the monastery of the Kai. There they developed their special talents under the tutelage of the Kai and were taught the disciplines of their noble ancestors. You are a lone wolf, and you are now the last of the Kai of Summerland. 4 years ago, your beloved homeland was invaded by the ancient enemy of your people, the Dark Lords of Felgedad. Their initial attack devastated the Kai monastery. All of your brave warrior order were in attendance for the Feast of Femarn, the celebration of the first day of spring. You were the sole survivor. You made a perilous journey to Holmgard, the capital of Summerland, where King Ulnar sent you upon a desperate quest for help. Your mission was fraught with great dangers and great urgency, for Summerland was being swiftly overrun. Dark Lord agents were abroad, seeking to kill you at every opportunity, but your skill and determination crushed their evil aims. You returned to Holmgard at the head of a great fleet of allies, and you destroyed Dark Lord Zagarna, the enemy leader, before the gates of Holmgard itself. Much of Summerland was ruined during the invasion. The rich farmlands were laid waste, and many towns and villages were razed to the ground. But the Sumlending are tough and resilient people. They were undaunted by the enormity of the task that lay before them. They set about the rebuilding of Summerland with such vigor and determination that now the scars inflicted by Dark Lord Zagarna and his mighty army are few and barely noticeable. For the crucial part that you played in the great victory, the king bestowed upon you the rank and title of Fry Hall of Summerland. It is a rare honor for one so young. The ruins of the Kai monastery and much of the surrounding lands are now Fryland, under your protection. Ruanon is a remote mining province far to the south from Summerland. Nestling between the sullen peaks of the Derncrag and Macan mountains, the people of this region have long prospered from their toil in the rich mines. Our rich mines, living and enjoying their wealth under the protection of their liege lord Baron Vanalund. The gold and gems that are mined at Ruanon provide an important source of revenue for Summerland. The heavily guarded convoy of wagons that leaves the province and makes the difficult journey north to the capital are a regular monthly occurrence. This routine has rarely been broken in living memory. However, it has now been over a month since all contact with Ruanon ceased. King Ulnar dispatched a troop of 100 of his elite guard cavalry to investigate the unusual silence and to locate the whereabouts of the missing convoy. Their commanding officer, Captain Deval, was ordered personally to report to the king as soon as contact was made, but he and his soldiers have not returned. They too have disappeared without trace. Fearful of the fate which may have befallen the convoy, the province and the captain's troopers, King Ulnar has summoned you, Lone Wolf, to his citadel at Holmgard. Your quest is to find Captain Deval and his guards, discover what has happened to the missing convoy, and to lift the veil of mystery that now hangs over the remote province Ruanon. The king has also summoned a company of 50 border rangers, all of whom are skilled in horsemanship and outdoor survival. He has ordered his soldiers to accompany you in the hope that, with your leadership, they may succeed where Deval's larger and more visible force has failed. As you and your rangers enter the Royal Armory to equip yourselves for the long ride south, you glimpse a black crow perched on a window ledge high above. It flies away, but not before a shiver has run down your spine. In Holmgard, the crow is a bird of ill omen. So just like last time, I prepared beforehand what was meant to be done before starting the adventure, which means taking a new Kai discipline. So unless someone else has another option to propose. we're going with Mind Blast tonight, which gives a +2 to combat skill. When we can use Mind Blast in combat, some creatures are immune to Mind Blast. That's the new Kai discipline that we have on attaining the rank of Warman. And we can also take 6 new items for what we had before. So the chosen items were a chainmail waistcoat that we can wear over the padded leather waistcoat. So it's a +4 endurance points. 2 meals and 2 potion of Lomspur, regular ones, which give back a +4 endurance points. The other options were kind of not really interesting. They were weapons, a shield that we have already, stuff like that. So even if we can take 6 items, not many of them were useful, and we were full in our backpacks, so I couldn't take more than 5 items overall. Actually, I took an axe, just for nostalgia purposes, since it was the first weapon that we had in the first book, while we were cutting woods at the beginning, when the Kai Monastery was overrun by the Dark Lord's army. So that will be the setup for this next adventure. And they give also, as usual, a map. Backpack if we didn't have any, more gold, but we were at max capacity for gold crowns anyway. So that's pretty much it. A little bit of Kai wisdom for starting the adventure. Your mission will be fraught with danger, for you are about to venture into a bleak and inhospitable territory located to the south of your homeland. On the fringes of the infamous Wildlands, use the map at the front of the book to help you plot your course to Rhiannon, and make notes as you progress through the story, for they will be of help to you in this and future adventures. Many things you find will aid you during your mission. Some items will be of use in future Lone Wolf adventures, and others may be red herrings of no real use at all, so try to be selective in what you decide to keep. There are several routes to Rhiannon, but only one will enable you to reach the mining town and discover the fate of Captain Deval with the minimum of danger. A wise choice of Kai disciplines and a great deal of courage should enable any player to complete the mission, no matter how weak their initial combat skill and endurance point score. Successful completion of previous Lone Wolf adventures is not essential for the success of this quest. For Summerland and the Kai. Section 1. Little recap of the homebrew rules, or actually. If we die, we go back to the previous choice, take a different choice. If we die again, we go back again until we find a choice where we don't die, so that we're not still playing this game tomorrow morning. If we die in combat and there's a flee option, we're going to take the flee option. If there's none, we're going back to a previous choice. There's no way to get around the fight. We'll just go through it like if we won. So those are the homebrew rules, as usual, like the previous times. Alright, so there we go. Section 1. For 3 days, you lead your brave company of border rangers across the lush plains of the Southland Marches on the first stage of your urgent mission. The flat, treeless fields surround you with a seemingly endless expanse of wheat, so high that even though you are in the saddle, it reaches well above your knees. Your horses seem to be swimming through a vast yellow sea that is only interrupted by an occasional track or group of isolated farmhouses. The southerners welcome your sudden appearance, but you only make the briefest stops for food and rest, wishing neither to impose a burden on these good people nor alarm them with the purpose of your mission. At noon on the 4th day, you reach the pass of Moitura. Here, the plains give way to the broken foothills of the Derncrag Mountains. You soon reach a highway heading off towards the south, its surface cracked and full of potholes. This is the notorious Ruanon Pike. South of the pass, the Ruanon Pike crosses 100 miles of open territory known as Raiders Road. Bandit tribes from the wildlands and Giak warbands from the mountains of the west frequently ambush those who travel along the pike. The regular shipments of gold and gems from the mines at Ruanon have sometimes yielded rich pickings to these merciless robbers. "Point and flankers!" you shout, and immediately 3 groups of rangers peel away from the column and spur their horses to a gallop. You watch with pride as the expert riders take up their scouting positions to the front and sides of the company. It is late afternoon when a ranger scout approaches the company from the west. He points towards a distant craggy outcrop, where a thin spiral of wood smoke betrays the hut hidden beneath an overhanging rock. 2 options. We can leave the highway and investigate the hut, or ignore the hut and continue to ride along the Ruanon Pike. Alright, so left Holmgard, the pass of Moitura. We're just about kind of over there, I guess. I think we should simply investigate just to make sure there are no robbers on the road, things like that. An escort of 5 rangers accompanies you along the twisting narrow track that leads to the hut. The rough stone walls are covered with a damp moss, into which is set a curious oval door. There are no windows. You have dismounted and are approaching the door when suddenly a man's voice calls from inside the hut. "Come in, Lone Wolf, I've been expecting you." 3 options. Can open the door to enter the hut, draw your weapon and kick open the door, or send the rangers into the hut ahead of us. We're expecting us. Could be someone from the Mage Guild, maybe. So let's simply enter the hut, open the door. Let's be brave and not send the rangers first. Still have the summer sword anyway. Should kind of give a lot of confidence to anyone. In the dim light of the interior, you see an old man seated at a table. The flickering glow of a log fire is all that illuminates this foul-smelling hovel. Yet it sheds enough light for you to see the clatter of charts and strange instruments that crowd the hut. The man slowly raises his gaze from a large crystal sphere and bids you sit opposite him. "You know my name?" "How?" you ask wearily. "The stars foretold our meeting long ago, Lone Wolf," he replies, slowly passing his withered old hands around the sphere. "Be not alarmed by my knowledge, for I wish only to aid you." He produces a small scroll of parchment from within his robe, and he hands it to you. On the scroll is written the following verse. "When the full moon shines o'er the temple deep, a sacrifice will stir from sleep. The legions of a long-forgotten lord, when a fair royal maid on the altar dies, the dead of Machengord shall rise to claim their long-awaited reward." You ask the meaning of the curious verse, but the old man does not answer you. He seems to have fallen into a deep trance. You lean across the cluttered table to awaken him, and are shocked when you see your hand pass straight through his body. Gradually, his image begins to fade until it disappears completely. You place the scroll in your pocket. It's a special item. Kind of ominous. Okay, first item, I think. Need to get rid of a little clutter time, maybe. Unnerved by this strange encounter, quickly you leave the hut, pausing briefly to wipe away the cold sweat that has formed on your furrowed brow. You may wish to make a note that you have visited a hut on Raiders Road for future reference. Okay. So, visited hut on Raiders Road. Alright. We'll need another place to make notes as well. Continue to 273. You have ridden less than 5 miles when you see a group of wagons on the highway ahead. They are painted in a gaudy mix of bright colors and drawn by harnessed teams of oxen. A huge tasseled banner flies above the leading wagon, which bears the following proclamation. The famous Azagia players, troubadours to the imperial courts of Magnamon, can stop and question the traveling minstrels or ignore them, let them pass. Sure, why not questioning them? They're either robbers or they have information. Signal to the driver to stop. The wagon's halt, and a small moon-faced man dressed in a bright pink tunic throws open the rear door of the leading carriage. He shouts and curses at the driver as awkwardly he descends the ladder, pausing only to adjust the cummerbund that barely covers his huge stomach. Upon seeing your rangers, he lets out a strangled shriek and fumbles for a short sword hanging at his side. "Bandits! Robbers!" he cries, as he wrestles uselessly to free his sword from its ornate scabbard. A row of anxious faces appears at the wagon windows, but the looks of anxiety give way to expressions of delight when they recognize your some lending uniforms. "Calm yourself, Yezu!" shouts an elderly woman. "They are some lending rangers. They'll not steal your gold." Laughter ripples along the carriages as the little fat man suddenly unsheaths his sword with such force that he spins around and falls clumsily to the ground. "You must forgive Yezu," says the old woman. "He means you no harm. It's just that traveling Raiders Road has made him a nervous wreck." You question the old woman, asking her where the group has come from and to where they are destined. You learn that they are a troop of players and have journeyed many miles from their native land of Cloasia, far away in the east. They last played for the people of Fishnar, but it was a disappointing show. It seems that the town was as quiet as the grave. The few who did not come to see them were a sad and sorry bunch. They are now bound for Holmgard, where they expect to find a bigger and more appreciative audience. "Light is fast fading," remarks the old woman. "Perhaps you and your company will camp with us tonight. We will deem it an honor and will be happy to entertain you with songs and dancing." You notice a hopeful look in the eyes of your soldiers as they await your decision. We can set up camp with the troubadours, or press on towards Ruanon. Sure. Let's have fun when we still can. Won't last long. The wagons are drawn into a circle and you set up camp inside their protective wall. A ranger is posted to patrol the perimeter. The troubadours construct a small stage onto which strides Yesu. He calls for silence before announcing the title of their play, The Brave Warriors of Summerland. A choice that meets with the hearty approval of your rangers. During the performance, you notice something very odd. Not only is one of the actors using a real sword, but it is a type of sword only issued to officers of the Sumlanding Cavalry. After the play, you approach a man to question him about the sword. He looks at you nervously and makes a dash for the darkness of the perimeter wagons. You can try to give chase with the Kai discipline of tracking or hunting that we both have. Or we can let him go. It's quite suspicious that the man ran away. After a simple question. Maybe he has nothing to... Still suspicious. Although the wagons are shrouded in darkness, your Kai sense reveals to you the actor's hiding place. Climb the ladder at the rear of a large caravan. Push open the door with your weapon and enter. Well, it's maybe a little mean with the weapon, or maybe a little aggressive. In the plush candlelit interior of the caravan, you find the actor cowering beneath a blanket in the far corner. You flick the blanket aside and ask the petrified man to explain how he came to possess such a fine sword. I bought it in Eshnar, he stammers, his eyes wide with fear. From the innkeeper of the Pick and Shovel Tavern. He grasps the sword by the blade and offers it to you. If it is your sword I have unwittingly bought, I am truly sorry. Here, please. Please take it. You grip the brass hilt and examine it closely. There is no doubting that it is some Sumlanding cavalry sword. But the inscription on the blade makes your heart miss a beat. Captain Remir Deval, King's Guard Regiment. If you wish to keep Deval's sword, mark it on your action chart. It's a sword that adds +1 to combat skill when using combat. But we're not really good with swords. Anyway. I hope that we can pay back the sword for this poor man. Is it considered a weapon? I guess. Yeah, it's a weapon. So, well, goodbye axe, I guess. Or is it simply a regular sword anyway? Ah, it's really Deval's sword. Thinking it's more important than an axe in case find someone else that recognizes the sword or anything like that. Might be useful. To continue, turn to 165. You return to the troubadour stage in time to receive a meal that has been prepared by your host for you and your rangers. The steaming broth smells most appetizing. You can accept the meal, or decline the food and eat a meal from the backpack. I guess that we can't hunt. Don't really not why. But They're kind of generous to give us a meal. It will replace the one that we couldn't take at the beginning because our backpack was full. Might be dangerous though. We've been poisoned, or they tried to poison us rather, in book 2. Well, I think he seems like a good man and good elder woman. So let's eat. The food is delicious, actually. You eat your fill and then make preparations to get a good night's sleep. At dawn, you and your company break camp and bid a fond farewell to the traveling players before continuing your mission to Ruanon. Pick a number from the random number table. No bonus, purely random. Let's roll the first D10 of the night. 4. If the number you have picked is 4 or lower, 25. Some kind of bad. After journeying through the rich wheat fields of the Southland Marches, the view that lies before you now looks especially bleak and colorless. The landscape is flat and desolate, relieved here and there by a ragged copse of stunted fir trees or an occasional mound of broken grey earth. You are now on the fringes of the wildlands beyond the pass of Moitura. You cannot use the Kai discipline of hunting to fulfill meal requirements in this region of desolate wasteland. During the afternoon, storm clouds gather above the peaks of the Durncrag Mountains to the west, and the low roll of distant thunder warns of imminent rain. It is early evening when your scouts find the ruins of an old temple. It is situated less than a mile from the highway. 2 options. We can set up camp for the night in the shelter of the ruins, or avoid the temple and continue along the highway. So, well, that's where we are right now. I think I thought we are farther down. Both seems kind of dangerous. Staying outside during the storm might be dangerous, and the ruins themselves might be dangerous too. But let's fight the danger rather than fight the elements. I think it would be easier for us and our rangers. $290. The ruins are overgrown with weeds and roots, but still you can make out the shape of the inner sanctum of the temple quite distinctly. The huge marble canopy is intact and will serve as an excellent shelter from the storm. As you tie your horse to a withered shrub, you glance up to see 2 men hiding beneath the canopy. They are dressed in long black robes. You order them to come out and identify themselves, but they neither move nor answer your call. 3 options. We can signal the rangers to attack the robbed strangers, try to capture them alive, or sheath our weapon and approach them with your hand extended in a gesture of friendship. Yeah, black robes. So far in the previous books, absolutely none of the guys wearing black were enemies or agents of the Dark Lords. Absolutely not. Absolutely not risky there. And I'm sure that the rangers will overpower them actually. Might be safer to approach with the gesture of friendship, as weird as it sounds. This way we'll go in front of the rangers instead of letting them go front those men and just be killed by Elgas or whatever. Let's try 78. So far in this book, being friendly gave us kind of some rewards. Has been helpful. As you approach, they slip back their hoods to reveal two smiling faces. They seem relieved to have made friendly contact in the middle of this inhospitable wasteland. Well, what do you know? Neither of them says a word, but they remove amulets from around their necks and offer them up to you as some kind of identification. You recognize the small wooden fishes hanging on their neck chains. These are symbols of a holy order known as the Redeemers, a silent order of pilgrims devoted to a lifetime of prayer and the study of the healing arts. One of the pilgrims hands you a small earthenware flask that contains a potion of holy water. You can keep that in our backpack that is currently full. You'll drop a meal, although we need meals right now because of the wildlands or a desert. I think we could gamble one less meal. And the holy water could be useful against agents of the Dark Lord. Your rangers pitch camp beneath the marble canopy and preparations are made for everyone to get some much needed sleep. You're hungry and must now eat a meal. Oh well. Let's eat the meal that we just threw away actually. Oh. That solves the problem. Alright. Continue at 233. Your rest is disturbed by the anxious shouting of the night guard. Awake, awake, we're under attack! Throwing back their blankets, your rangers leap to their feet and peer out through the teeming rain at the shadowy silhouette of horsemen circling the ruins. Suddenly an arrow whistles through the darkness. Your lookout emits a gurgling scream and falls to their knees. Form a circle, you shout. Keep behind cover. The rangers gather swords and shields and press themselves against the wet temple marble for protection. The sound of metal shod boots on stone makes you spin around. A dozen warriors, dressed in shiny red armor, are clambering across the broken pillars. Actually, red is worse than black here. Deadly agents of the Dark Lords. Two rangers run to block their advance, but they are felled by one sweep of the warrior leader's broadsword. Then the warrior sees you and quickens his pace. His bloodied sword is raised to strike again. You cannot evade combat and must fight the warrior to the death. Bandit warrior. Combat skill 17. Should be an easy fight. It's a plus 11 combat ratio. And he has 26 endurance points. So we're going to use the D10 instead of the random number table for the combat. First fight of the night. 7. Quite fine. Alright, the plus 11 or greater, 7. So no damage against 18 to the enemy. Round 2. 3. 2 versus 11, so the warrior is dead. And we only lost 2 HP or endurance point. Win this fight. Turn to 312. All around you, the ruins echo to the clash of weapons and the screech of battle cries. These armor-clad horsemen are no ordinary bandit clan. They fight with the discipline and skill unheard of among the lowly outlaws of the wildlands. You step over the dead warrior and call about you a handful of your rangers. The enemy has surrounded your horses, and you must act quickly if you are to save them from being taken. You lead a charge through the ruins which pierces the enemy line. They falter and flee back into the darkness. However, by the time you have reached the temple perimeter, only 11 of your horses remain. All the others have vanished. After much thought, you decide to choose 10 rangers to continue the mission with you, sending the remainder of your company back to Summerlawn on foot to report what has happened. As the gloomy light of dawn gradually fills the sky, you and your chosen companions bid a sad farewell to those who must march home. Pick a number from the random number table. Your luck roll again. 4. It's 3 or higher. Turn to 51. You have been riding for nearly 4 hours without a rest when you see a large flock of birds. They are large, black, and they are sweeping around the brow of a distant ridge. If you have the Kai discipline of animal kinship, we don't. We can investigate the ridge without the skill, or we can ignore the birds. Press on by turning. Large and black sounds like cran, maybe, so could be dangerous. Depends how large they are. I guess if they will be cran, won't need animal kinship to identify them. Actually, we're kind of familiar with them. I think we can investigate even without the animal kinship. So 328. As you reach the top of the ridge, a gruesome sight befalls you. The bodies of people and horses lie scattered across the shallow valley beyond, their bones picked clean by the scavenging crows. You hear the gasps of horror as your rangers recognize the armor and tattered white uniforms of these skeleton forms, for they were once your country folk. They were once some landing guards of the king's cavalry. They must have died in battle, for the decomposing corpses of bandit warriors lie entwined among them. 40 brave soldiers, nearly half of the squadron that left Holmgard 1 month ago, now lies strewn across the plain before you. It is with heavy heart that your rangers set about the grisly task of burial. As you ride away from this valley of death, you are comforted only by the knowledge that Captain Devol was not among those who were slain. But he still lost his sword somehow. And we're back to full endurance points due to our healing skill. After riding for several uneventful hours, at length you reach a highway junction. A large signpost indicates 2 destinations. South to Ruanon, 60 miles, and east to Eshnar, 40 miles. You have now reached a location where the Kai discipline of hunting can be used once again to fulfill a meal requirement. Great. You can go south or east. Our destination is south. But a wise man said last week on the channel that we shall always go east when there's an option to go east. Actually, it was an option to go west and east, or east. But there's another incentive to go east to Eshnar, actually. The sword of Devault that was bought there. So you'll take a detour and find out what happened to the sword. Let's go east. It is noon the following day when you reach the outskirts of Eshnar. To the south, the wooded hills gradually ascend towards the magnificent snow-capped peaks of the Damacan Range. It is a beautiful sight, one in stark contrast to the squalor of Eshnar and the desolate wildlands to the north. You ride along the only street in this dilapidated town, and eventually arrive outside a large tavern called the Pick and Shovel. Your rangers and horses are exhausted and badly in need of food and rest. If you have the Kai discipline of 6 cents, turn at once to 210. Otherwise, we can enter the tavern without a skill or continue riding, but we have 6 cents, so let's see at 210. I guess the town might be overrun by bandits or something like that. Definitive possibility. At least we found the tavern where the actor bought the cavalry sword. You have a very uneasy feeling about this town. So far you have only seen women and children shuffling along the street. There has been no sign of any men whatsoever. The inhabitants all seem nervous and avoid looking you directly in the eye. Instinct tells you to turn around and leave this place as quickly as possible. You can follow our instincts, or press on regardless of those instincts, and investigate the tavern, or continue along the street. I really want to see if we can find information about the cavalry sword in the tavern. Let's just be quick about it and careful. Your rangers tether their horses and follow you into the tavern. An old woman stands behind the bar, her face taut and lined as if she is in pain. She wears a collarless shirt and baggy checkered trousers, clothes more often worn by men in this area. The tavern is empty, but the tables are covered with mugs of ale. Several are half full of beer. It's really an ambush. But we need information. Oh, is it? If we were alone, it would be a different story, but the poor rangers coming with us. Let's question the woman since we're here. Let's go willingly into an ambush, and see how it goes. You have taken no more than a dozen steps when the old woman drops to the floor. A ranger shouts, "Ambush!" But it is the last word they will ever utter. Damn. A razor-sharp disc of metal whistles down from the balcony above and sinks deeply into their chests. Suddenly, the tavern is full of bandits. They pour in through windows and doors. 3 bandits charge straight at you, their faces contorted with rage. Their northeastern battle cries are loud and fearsome. You draw your weapon and strike with great speed and precision, eliminating 2 of the warriors with a single blow. The 3rd bandit is upon you before the decapitated bodies of his comrades have fallen to the floor. Another bandit warrior, combat skill 17, a little more endurance. Pretty much the same fight as before. I think that our rangers troop all have taken the glass cannon build. They fall at nothing. 27 endurance. Okay, let's go. Second fight. Should be an easy one as well. 9. Oh. No damage. Instead dead. Okay. Job's done. Can evade the combat at any time. Yeah, not necessary. Ah, that's not the correct ref. No evade there. So you win the fight, 75. No sooner has the first warrior collapsed at your feet and another is hacking at you from the side. As you turn to face him, a spear thrust gashes your left arm. Lose 2 endurance points. Well, we're kind of outnumbered there. You recoil in pain, and in the crush of the battle, you slip and fall to the floor, which is already heaped with bodies. When you glimpse an open door, instinctively you crawl towards it. Pick a random number from the random number table. If you possess the guide discipline of camouflage, we do add 2 to the number you have picked. So 1 plus 2 equals 3, which is bad. 3 or lower, 192. You're less than 5 feet from the door when a bandit warrior comes rushing in. Instinctively you step aside, but not quickly enough to avoid the serrated steel tip of his halberd. The cold metal sinks into your chest, and you stare down in horror as blood begins to flow and a terrible pain spreads through your body. You have suffered a fatal wound, and you expire within seconds of hitting the floor. Tragically, your life and your mission end here, on a dice roll. With almost full HP. Yep. So let's go back. We'll roll a better number for fun. Go D10. Hey, plus 2 it's 10. So go to a better place. 15. You reach the door and quickly make your escape. The land behind the tavern is steeply sloped and heavily forested. 2 of your rangers attempt to follow, but they are both badly wounded and cannot keep up with you. You turn to shout encouragement, only to witness their death, as they are brutally set upon and stabbed to the ground. Their bandit murderers wipe their blades and then come rushing towards you. 2 options. Run southwards, straight into the dense timberland, or attempt a change of direction westwards as soon as the trees hide you from your pursuers. Change of direction sounds kind of smart. And we had no information at all in the tavern. Damn. I'm sorry, rangers. I thought you were better. You're parting the dense foliage when suddenly the earth crumbles and you topple headlong over the edge of a steep drop. You tumble for several seconds and then land with a crash on a wide forest track. Less than 10 feet away kneels a bandit. He is examining the hoof of his horse, prizing out a sharp flint from the animal's shoe with a long curved dagger. The noise of your fall startles him, and he turns towards you with his weapon poised to attack. Another bandit warrior. Combat skill 16, endurance 24, so an easier fight. But we didn't have time to heal at all. Plus 12 combat ratio. Okay, should be easy as well. 6. One damage versus 11. Versus 16. Actually. Again around. 6 again. It's 2 against 32. Dead. If you win the combat, you are able to see a group of bandits closing in from the north. Spotted just in time. Make a hasty escape. Well, NPCs in Lone Wolf books never live long, anyway. Onward and upward, you claw your way through the wooded hillside. Your throat is dry and your heart is pounding in your chest as though it is fit to burst, but you dare not slacken off your pace. 4 tortuous hours pass before you feel certain that you have finally outrun the enemy. It is nearly dusk when you chance upon a narrow, steep-sided valley that's been carved out from the hillside to afford access to a mine tunnel. For hundreds of years, the ore of the Macan range has been the blessing and the bane of many who have ventured here to seek their fortune. Many have found wealth beyond their wildest dreams, but many more have perished without trace in its labyrinth of cold, dark tunnels. Carefully you examine the mine entrance. You know that if you can find a major passage, you should be able to follow it all the way to Rhiannon itself. Near to the entrance, you find a discarded wooden crate containing 6 torches and a tinder box. The mines are dark, and you anticipate that you will need to use at least 1 torch to light your way. If you possess the summer sword, you notice its light fades over time once you unsheath it. You can take as many as you wish, but remember that each torch counts as 1 backpack item. Okay. Don't really have any space for that. Rope is always useful, never leave home without a rope. Potion of Alater might not be useful, but against a boss fight we never know. The Grave Weed Concentrate, I'm not sure if it would be useful after not choosing it in the room inside the Ikaya last time. 2 Potion of Lumspur might be a bit too much. Can we use the torch right now? Unless you already possess an alternative means of relighting the torch later. Like another tinderbox or a called fire sphere. We have a fire sphere actually. We need also the tinderbox. So we don't need the tinderbox because of the fire sphere. Oh, right. It is not necessary to record the 1 lit torch on your action chart. So we can use the torch right now, lit it with the fire sphere, and we're fine. But we have only 1 torch, so we can take a backup torch just in case. Sounds like a plan to have an extinguished torch lost in underground river or whatever. I think we won't need the Grave Weed Concentrate later on. I think its purpose was only inside Ikea. So we can trade the Grave Weed for a torch. And we'll be good, I think. When you're ready, you can enter the Macan Mines by turning to 315. In the flickering light of your torch, you can see that the tunnel is supported by a crisscross of props and beams. The rock is damp, and a narrow rivulet of ore-stained water runs along the tunnel floor. Soon you reach a junction where the tunnel heads off to the left and right. You possess the Kai discipline of tracking. We do. You sense that the left tunnel leads away from the direction of Ruanon. Knowing this, you turn and head off towards the right. Left is always better though. Continue, turn to 145. The tunnel descends for several miles into solid rock. You're occasionally startled by unexpected swarms of glowing mine flies or fluttering bats that come swooping out of the darkness, attracted by your body heat, but neither pose any real danger to you. Eventually you reach a chamber where a small wooden hut has been erected. It stands propped lopsidedly against the wall. You are now desperately tired and in much need of sleep. Weird place to put a hut though. Two options. We can stop and rest for a while in the hut, or press on regardless of your fatigue. Let's stop at the hut. Last hut was a friendly place. Extinguishing your torch, you curl up on the floor and quickly fall into a deep sleep. Many hours pass before you awaken, totally refreshed by your rest. Restore 2 endurance points. And we already got 1, 2, 3, 4 points for the healing skill anyway, so we're back to full. Relighting your torch, you can now see that the hut is full of mining tools. Picks, shovels, and wheelbarrows are stacked upright along its far wall. If you wish to take either a pick or a shovel, do so and mark it on your chart as a backpack item. Well, that's kind of too many items. Due to the size of these tools, they each take up the same amount of space as 2 normal backpack items. Damn. Rope. Pick or shovel. Will be useful inside a mine, not much outside of them. Torch, holy water, meal. Well, let's drop both per potion and trade it for pick, I guess. Will be pretty much it. I don't see what else that we can drop to make space for a shovel. Two tunnels lead away from the chamber. One leads towards the west, the other towards the south. West or south. No indication whatsoever which would be the best route. I think we should go south. Sounds like better way to go to reach Ruanon. Maybe we'll end up inside the Magenmire swamp. $129. Soon you arrive at a collapsed section of the tunnel. A wide rift has appeared in the floor and a makeshift bridge has been thrown across it. In spite of the many gaping holes in the bridge floor, you are able... The word missing there. You are able to make your way safely to the other side. You are hungry and must now eat a meal or lose 3 endurance points. If you possess the guide discipline of hunting, you are unable to use it within the Magan mines to forage food. Okay. Hunting hasn't been really useful so far. So one more space for a future item. Or meal though. Make necessary adjustments, blah blah blah, 309. For 3 hours, you explore this winding passageway before arriving at a great hall where several tunnels, all at different depths, meet up. A series of wide stone ramps connect each tunnel to those immediately above and below. 4 levels below you, teams of miners are pushing wagon loads of ore. Others, dressed in red armor, stand guard over the wagon pushers and urge them on with whips and curses. The tunnel in which you now stand is on the highest level. You realize that the only way you can proceed from here is by descending the ramp to a tunnel on a lower level. To your dismay, you notice that each of the ramps is guarded by armed bandits. Inching forward, you peer over the edge of the ramp. 2 guards are sitting near the tunnel entrance below. They're laughing and giggling, and pointing at an empty wine flagon that lies at their feet. After watching them for several minutes, you decide they are probably too drunk to notice you. You decide to make a dash for the tunnel. Pick a number from the random number table. If you possess the Kai discipline of camouflage, add 4 to the number you have picked. Which we do. So let's just not roll 1 and we're fine. 3 plus 4, 7. Your total is 6 or higher. You slip past the guards and enter the tunnel unseen. It is a wide passageway, and it is illuminated by a line of wall torches with gathering flames that crackle and splatter noisily. You follow the tunnel, and soon you arrive at a junction where it narrows and divides in two. If you have the Kai discipline of Sixth Sense or Tracking, turn to 250. We do both. You notice that the right tunnel is newly excavated, and you sense that it has yet to be completed. Rather than risk getting caught in a dead end, push on along the left tunnel. Good, left is good. 335. The tunnel soon emerges into a large chamber, which is divided by a deep mine shaft. A dark-skinned warrior in tatty leather armor stands guard at the entrance to the wooden bridge spanning the shaft. He is whittling at a block of wood and grumbling to himself about how unfair it is that he is always given the most boring duties. On the far side of the chamber, a tunnel disappears into the west wall. You know that if you are to reach the tunnel, you must first get past the guard and across the bridge. You possess the Kai discipline of camouflage and wish to use it, or the Kai discipline of might over matter. We don't the second one, so we can use camouflage to 35. Using your Kai skill, you are able to blend into the shadows of the chamber wall and slowly inch your way nearer and nearer to the bridge. As you draw closer, the guard puts down his block of wood and turns his back towards you. He is rummaging in his haversack for some food. At once, you seize this opportunity and sprint towards the bridge with your weapon, poised in readiness to strike down the unwary guard, which has the most boring duties. Pick a number for the random number table. You have the Kai discipline of hunting, or if you have reached the Kai rank of guardian or higher, add 3 to the number. We have both. Ooh. We need a really good roll. 6 plus 3, 9. So it is 8 or higher. Your attack is swift and deadly. The guard has expired before his head hits the ground. A thorough search of his clothing reveals 3 gold crowns, but we're full, a sword that we don't need, and enough food for 1 meal that can replace the 1 meal we just have eaten, actually. Alright. You may take any of these items. Muffled footsteps make you glance nervously along the tunnel. 2 guards are trying to creep up on you under cover of the shadows, but you turn and run off before they can launch an attack. You can hear the harsh breath of the guards close behind you. Suddenly, the tunnel narrows and divides in 2. If you possess either the Kai discipline of tracking or Sixth Sense, turn to 60. We do. Your Kai sense reveals to you that the right tunnel is a recent excavation. It is also a dead end. Again. Anxious to avoid getting trapped by your pursuers, you turn and run into the left tunnel. You soon enter a chamber that is divided by a deep mine shaft. Spanning the shaft is a wooden bridge, at the entrance to which is a swarthy warrior stands guard. He has been alerted by the screams of your pursuers, and as soon as he sees you, he runs towards a rope that is hanging from the ceiling. He has left the bridge unguarded, and your pursuers are nearly upon you. 2 options: we can sprint across the bridge, or attack the guard to prevent him from reaching the rope. The rope is most probably an alarm, so it would be wise to prevent him from reaching it, I think. You hit the guard hard and open a deep wound in his neck. He screams and turns to face you, a short sword clenched in his hand. Wounded guard, combat skill 12. That's plus 16 combat ratio. And he has only 18 endurance left. I don't see what the challenge will be here. We need to win the fight in 3 rounds or less. That's the challenge. 4. 2 damage against 12. Two against 10. Dead, but he managed to wound us better than any other enemies before. But we won inside 3 rounds or less. As you stepped over the dead guard, you wish you may take his short sword. We already have a short sword. You follow the line of the hanging rope to a pair of locking pins that secure the bridge to the edge of the mine shaft. If the guard had pulled the rope, the pins would have been dislodged, and you would have been trapped on this side of the chamber. You run across the bridge just as your pursuers make their entrance. A rope similar to the one you saw previously hangs from the ceiling near to the tunnel entrance in the west wall. Glancing over your shoulder, you see that your pursuers are now halfway across the bridge. Well, you can either pull the rope or ignore the rope and make a speedy escape. Well, now that we know what it does, I think we should pull the rope and just block their path. A smile flickers across your face as you give the rope a hefty tug. Confidently, you turn to watch your pursuers drop into the gaping mine shaft. Unfortunately, the only thing to drop is a heavy portcullis that has now sealed off the entrance to the tunnel. Your enemies cackle with delight at your misfortune as they draw their weapons in readiness to strike. Yeah, sure. Cannot evade these enemies, and you must fight them one at a time as they come leaping from the bridge. So we have 3 fight back to back. And manage only to heal 1 endurance point with the healing skill. First fight, combat skill 20. So it's plus 8 combat ratio. And he has 30 endurance points. Hardest fight of the night so far. Five. 2 against 11. Round 2. Bro. Insta death. So less 2 endurance points, that's not so bad. Fight number 2. Combat skill 18, endurance 26. Which means a plus 10 combat ratio. Eight. No damage against 18. Oh, 1. Quite bad. 4 damage against 7. Eight. No damage against 16. Enemy is dead. And we're down to 25 endurance points for the third fight. Against an enemy with 16 combat skill and 24 endurance points. It's a plus 12 combat ratio. Five. 1 damage against 14. And 1. 3 against 3 against 3 against 9. Another low roll. 2 damage against 10. The enemy is dead. But he made a lot of damage. We're down to 19 endurance points. Okay, that was kind of a hard fight. If you win all 3 combats, turn to 261. Take a long time to heal that. I regret the potions of Lomspur. On the first body that you search, you find 8 gold crowns, but we're full. Enough food for 1 meal, but we're full. You're about to search the others when you hear the sound of running footsteps approaching from the other side of the chamber. You pull the rope once more and breathe a sigh of relief as the portcullis rises into the ceiling. Rolling under the widening gap, you jump to your left and make a hasty escape along the tunnel. No more than 50 yards along the tunnel wall, you notice a lever set into the rock. Your Kai instincts make you naturally suspicious of this unusual feature, and you scour the floor, looking for evidence of a trap. Find nothing, but a glance at the roof reveals the underside of a wide portcullis hidden between two supporting beams. You pull the lever and the portcullis falls, sealing off the tunnel behind you. Make sure you will not be followed. You smash the lever with a wedge of stone before continuing your exploration of this tunnel. You are hungry and must now eat a meal or lose 3 endurance points. If you possess the Kai discipline of hunting, you are unable to use it to provide food in this instance. Okay, so another meal gone. Tunnels there. Quite long. The tunnel continues for several miles before eventually arriving at a long deserted gallery. A line of empty ore wagons are parked along a stretch of track that disappears into the west wall of this gallery. Above the arched main tunnel, a flight of wooden stairs leads to a smaller passage that is lit by a spluttering torch. You stay hidden in the shadows, watching the gallery for half an hour before you are satisfied that it is safe to enter. If you have the Kai discipline of tracking, and if you have reached the Kai rank of aspirant or higher, it's the case. So 349. Judging by the smoothness of the stone floor and the condition of the ore wagons, you deduce that this gallery must service a major section of the mines. A fresh breeze can be felt blowing out of the west tunnel, and your senses tell you that you are near to the surface. Ruanon lies due west, in the same direction as the ore wagon tunnel. Mindful of this fact, you take a deep breath and emerge from the shadows, cross the gallery, and quietly enter the archway beyond. Well, I think it's fair to say that Ruanon has been overrun by bandits at this point. As you make your way along the torchlit tunnel, you pass by several ore wagons bearing identical brands on their wooden sides. It is a cross-mow line set above the initials OV. You recognize this to be the seal of Oren Vanalund, the Baron of Ruanon, and it confirms your belief that you are heading in the right direction. Suddenly, the sound of approaching footsteps can be heard echoing from the tunnel ahead. They become steadily louder, and they are accompanied now by shouting and the sharp crack of a whip. Two options. You can dive into one of the empty ore wagons, or hide in the shadows cast by the rough tunnel wall. If the wagons are already going into the right direction, if we hide inside, they might push us into towards where we want to go, actually. But it doesn't seem like a really good place to hide. Let's gamble on their stupidity. Raising the hood of your Kai cloak, you crouch in the bottom of an empty ore wagon and wait here with bated breath. Through a gap in the wood, you can see a haggard procession of men shuffling towards you. An escort of bandit warriors pushes them forward, beating any who falter or slip out of line. You feel a sudden jolt as your wagon is pushed along the tunnel and glance up to see a sweat streak. Makes more sense, a sweat streak face peering down at you. "Run left when I say go," whispers the face. Then it disappears from view behind the edge of the wagon. As the wagon emerges from the tunnel, weak sunlight suddenly floods over you. Through the crack you can now see your destination. The wagons are being shunted onto a timber gantry where the track ends some 50 feet above a huge mound of ore. Your observations are cut short by Ist's command. "Go!" 3 options. You can leap from the wagon and run left, or jump from the wagon and run right, or simply ignore the command and stay in the wagon. Well, I think that if the man wanted us to be found by the bandits, he would have just screamed or pointed into our directions. So that sounds kind of helpful comment, helpful advice. I think we should heed what he said. You leap over the side of the wagon and sprint towards a group of densely packed trees that are less than 20 yards from the track. Luck is with you, for the bandit guards fail to notice your daring escape and the wagons continue on their way towards the gantry without slowing. Pausing just long enough to catch your breath, you give silent thanks to the stranger who helped you before pressing onwards through the thick woodland. Thank you, stranger. The trees are alive with bandit patrols, but your quick wits and Kai skills prevent you from being spotted by any of them. Eventually you come to the edge of the copse, and you find yourself staring out across an expanse of open plain towards the town Ruanon. The sight that lies before you is very disquieting. Much of the mining town has been burned to the ground. The blackened ruins of what were once shops, cottages, and taverns are now little more than smoldering mounds of charcoal. You are beginning to fear the worst, that Ruanon has been totally destroyed, when a gentle breeze clears the haze of wood smoke hanging like a grey curtain over the ruins. Inside the perimeter of ruined buildings, you can now see that a barricade has been thrown up around the tower of stone. Above the tower, a tattered flag still flies. It brings you renewed hope, for it is a sun flag of Summerlawn edged with a band of white braid. It is the cavalry standard of the King's Guard regiment. The sudden crack of a twig makes you freeze. You glance behind to see 3 bandits creeping through the trees towards you. The wide steel tips of their spears glint in the gloom of the thick timberland, and they seem to be coated with a clear, sticky fluid. If you possess the Kai discipline of hunting, or if you have ever visited Gorn Cove. We did both. You recognize Nadurm's sap dripping from their spears. It is a deadly and swift-acting poison. You dare not risk engaging in combat with these bandits, for the merest graze from one of their tainted weapons could be fatal. Leaping to your feet, you race away from the trees and run towards Ruanon. From all along the forest edge, groups of bandits emerge from the trees, whipped and scolded by their bullying sergeants for allowing you to escape. This spurs you to quicken your pace, and you cover the first 100 yards with ease. Then arrows begin to fall around you. You duck and weave, making yourself a difficult target for the archers, and gradually the falling shafts dwindle in number. You smile at their futile attempts to stop you, but your confidence is soon shaken by a pack of snarling warhounds breaking out of the woods to your right. They're off the leash and hungry for blood. You're less than 500 yards from Ruanon, but the warhounds are closing in with frightening speed. We can quicken our pace and try to outrun them, or halt and fight. Not sure we can outrun. Warhounds. Do we want to fight them though? Will mean that more bandits will come around. Like risky too. Let's try to outrun them, even if it sounds kind of futile. You try to ignore the pain of your aching legs and the fear that knots your stomach by forcing your concentration on the sun flag, a fluttering symbol of hope in the distance. Your face is streaked with sweat and your lungs feel fit to burst, but you dare not slacken your pace. The thought of warhound fangs closing and tugging on your skin is all you need to drive you onwards. At 400 yards, you can see that the barricade and watchtower are inhabited. But at this distance, the faces you can see are only a line of small dots on the walls. At 300 yards, you run into some gruesome remains, where the corpses of bandits lie twisted on the ground, most killed by arrows. Many have lain in the open for weeks. A murder of startled carrion crows arises, shrieking from their feast, as you race through the decomposing bodies. You turn your face away in disgust. Suddenly a new sound drifts across the plain. It is the sound of cheering. The beleaguered defenders have just spotted you and recognize your green Kai cloak. Now there are only 200 yards to go. You have just passed the ruins of a burnt-out cottage when you feel an agonizing pain tear through your left thigh. An arrow has pierced your leg, and you are pitched forward into the mud and ash. Crouched in the ruined cottage, a bandit sniper sniggers evilly as he raises his bow and takes careful aim at your head. Pick a number from the random number table. If you possess camouflage, add 1. So 3 plus 1, 4. If it is 1 to 5, turn to 20. An arrow hisses overhead. A scream of agony fills the air. The bow slips from the archer's fingers as he sinks slowly to his knees, the arrow lodged deep between his startled eyes. The clack of fangs and the soft, swift pad of stealthy feet tell you that the warhounds are closing in. You look up to see a man running towards you from the barricade. He has a shield in one hand and a long bow in the other. It is Guard Captain Duval. He reaches you, breathless from his run, and draws an arrow from his quiver. Duval aims and fires, drawing another arrow the moment the first is loosed. The warhound stumbles and crashes to the ground around you, felled by Duval's deadly accurate shafts. 8 lie dead before his quiver is empty. Whoa, quite a marksman. The captain grabs you by the arm and, swinging you over his shoulder in one swift motion, carries you back towards the barricade. Others run forward to help you, but the bandit archers are now in range and your men are forced back by a hail of arrows. The red shafts of the enemy whistle past on all sides. As you reach the barricade, a wagon is pulled aside and you are carried in through the gap. Captain Duval is close to exhaustion. He staggers, and his guards rush to catch him before he drops you to the ground. A circle of unshaven faces stare down at you. A soldier cradles your leg while another snaps the shaft that is buried deeply in your thigh. Before you can even cry out in pain, he has drawn the arrow from your leg with one swift tug. "You are very lucky," he says, as he bandages a handful of lumspur leaves to your aching limb. "The wound is clean and the bleeding is but slight. You lose 4 endurance points, but the soldier's quick thinking and skill has saved your leg from infection." Okay, so we healed a bit since the last fight, though. (13 more HP. That's 32 minus 4, 28. Hitting skill is still saving our ass here. With care, the soldiers carry both you and Captain Duval away into the stone watchtower. Well, actually, mission's done. We've reached Rhiannon and we know what's going on. Now to solve this problem, it's quite another hurdle. Big one. I was hoping the king will send out a large search party, says Captain Duval, wryly, now having fully recovered from his exhaustion. I was beginning to tire of this town. Rise from your straw bed and offer your thanks to the captain. His brave and timely actions saved you from a certain death. Nothing to compare with you, Lone Wolf, replies the captain. Your bravery is legion. Your presence here is worth for 100 soldiers. He asks you about your mission, and you recount the events that have led you to this meeting. The long ride south, the loss of your company, your passage through the Macan mines, and your encounters with the bandits. Yes, the bandits, Baraka's fighters, retorts Duval, his gruff voice conveying his contempt for them and their leader. It seems we have both suffered at his hand. A month ago, he and his Vasagonian renegades ambushed my troops on the Rhiannon Pike. We were sorely outnumbered, and the fight was bitter, but we broke free of their deadly grip and escaped here to Rhiannon. We have been beleaguered ever since, unable to do much else except pray for help to arrive from Holmgard. We have weapons and courage enough to resist them, but we have barely enough food and water left to survive another week. We asked Duval, what has become of the people of Rhiannon? Most are now slaves. Baraka has taken the mines, and he uses the Rhiannese as forced labor. Other than yourself, there is only one other who has escaped from the mines and survived the warhounds and the bandit snipers. His man is Baron Oren Vanalon. Come, I shall take you to him. Duval leads you to the topmost chamber of the watchtower and pushes open an iron-shut door. The sight which meets your eyes fills your heart with sorrow and pity. Oren Vanalund is the 15th Baron of Rhiannon, a noble warrior of royal lineage and 5th in succession to the throne of Summerland. This once proud and chivalrous warlord now lies upon the cold stone floor of the chamber, red-eyed and whimpering like a frightened dog. He has lost everything, says Duval quietly. Baraka has destroyed his castle, his land, his town, and his family. His sons are dead, and his only daughter, Madelon, has been taken captive by Baraka himself. I fear the ordeal has broken his mind. That's the sacrifice written in the scroll. The Baron's daughter shares the same name as her royal cousin, Madelon. You first met the crown princess when you fled to Holmgard to warn the king of the destruction of the Kai monastery 4 years ago. The pathetic man raises his tear-stained face and with feeble voice mutters a curious rhyme over and over again. When a fair royal maid on the altar dies, the dead of Holmgard shall rise. You possess a scroll. We do possess that scroll. As you unfurl the scroll and begin to read its ominous contents, The Baron struggles to his feet. Word for word echoes the prophetic verse.
When the full moon shines o'er the temple deep, a sacrifice will stir from sleep the legions of a long-forgotten lord. When a fair royal maid on the altar dies, the dead of Magan Gorge shall rise, claim their long-awaited reward. You must save her, Lone Wolf. You must prevent the sacrifice.
The Baron's voice is choked with emotion. Saved who? Questions Captain Duval as he tries to calm the distressed Baron.
My daughter, Madelon. Barakas found the dagger of Vashna. He plans to sacrifice my daughter upon the altar of Maken to release the undead of Magan Gorge.
The Baron explains that during the Age of the Black Moon, King Ulnar I of Summerland killed the mightiest of all the Dark Lords, Vashna, with the divine Summer Sword, the Sword of the Sun. Vashna's remains and the bodies of all his soldiers were hurled into the bottomless abyss of Maken Gorge.
He plans to lead the dead to victory, first to conquer Summerland and then all of the last lands,
says despairingly. You stare at the Baron in stunned silence. If Baraka completes the sacrifice, all is lost. What mortal army can stand against a legion of the dead? Captain Duval ushers you from the chamber and closes the door. I feared he was insane, but your scroll confirms my worst nightmare. He speaks the truth. As the dreadful significance of the verse begins to sink in, your thoughts are broken by the shrill blast of a war horn. Captain Duval strides over to a narrow slit and peers out across the plain. As he turns to speak, you notice that his face is ashen grey. The bandits! They're launching an attack! If you possess Captain Duval's sword, we do. Hey, we can give it back to him. You draw the sword and offer it to the captain. A look of surprise and delight crosses his face as he examines the blade. I never expected to see my trusty steel again. It is certainly a good omen for the battle ahead. Thanking you, the captain sheathes his sword in its scabbard, which until now has hung empty from his belt. And here is the sword. Hunter job well done. Follow Captain Duval as he hurries down the broad watchtower steps and out to the barricade. A rolling sound, like distant thunder, fills the air. Cavalry are pouring onto the plain from all sides, grouping up into battalions in preparation for the advance. Columns of foot soldiers in bright scarlet armor march through their ranks, herding a frightened wall of people before them. The Rennies! Cries Duval, his hand shielding the light from his eyes. That cur Baraka is using them as a shield. All around you, the captain's soldiers have drawn their arrows and are waiting his signal to fire, but it is an order he dare not give. Suddenly, a hidden catapult hurls a massive black rock through the air. It arcs and tumbles straight towards the barricade. You stare in horror as it bursts into flame and disintegrates, showering a rain of blazing oil on everyone beneath. The soldiers cannot evade the deluge and many are badly burnt before the flames are smothered. A battle cry resounds from the enemy ranks. It is the signal to attack. The Ruanese are roughly pushed aside and trampled by the onrush of scarlet warriors who are now racing towards the barricade. The blazing oil has scattered Duval's troops, and the barricade is poorly defended. You hear Duval shout your name. His cloak and tunic are ablaze, and he is screaming for your help. If you have reached the Kai rank of Journeyman or Warmarn, we do. You must rally the defenders or all is lost. You order 2 soldiers to help the captain and then you leap up onto the side of an overturned wagon in order to get a clearer view of the enemy advance. You have already reached the ruined perimeter of Ruanon and they are now creeping forward under cover of the broken cottage walls. You shout orders to Devil's soldiers to defend the barricade, but the enemy is less than 100 yards from the wall. You are afraid it might already be too late to repel their attack. The Vasagonian bandits break cover and charge. Coolly, you give the order to fire. A cloud of arrows sweeps down upon the armor-clad men, and the ardent tips penetrate their scarlet plate. The first wave of assailants stumbles and falls, and the second wave falters. Another volley forces them to retreat to the ruins to reorganize themselves. Here and there, some bandit warriors have survived the hell of death and reached the barricade. Most are slain as they try to enter, but a small and determined section of their boldest fighters have broken through close to where you stand. Suddenly, a thick-bodied warrior leaps onto the wagon and attacks you. Vasagonian warrior, combat skill 18. We have healed again. Not much actually. Only 3. That ratio plus 10 and 2500. Right, another fight. 8th one tonight. 2, another bad roll. Three damage. 9. No damage, instead death. Right, only 3 endurance points lost after this fight. Can evade combat at any time. Don't need to. So win the fight. 43. Deval runs past the wagon, leading a dozen of his best horsemen in a bold counter-charge which drives the enemy all the way back to the barricade. No one escapes alive. Those who survive Deval's swordsmen are soon cut down on the plain by his archers as they run headlong towards the ruins. The sumlanding shout of victory has barely died away before you are faced by a new and sinister threat. A mantlet, a large shield on wheels, is being pushed slowly across the body-strewn battleground towards the barricade. Arrow shafts soon bristle from its thick wooden planks as Deval's soldiers fire their bows time and time again in an attempt to hit the shielded foe. Suddenly a robed figure darts from behind the mantlet and levels a black staff at the barricade. He is cut down by an arrow, but not before he lets loose from his staff a guttering ball of flame. It cartwheels across the plain and explodes with a tremendous roar, hurling the bodies of defenders and the shattered remnants of the barricade high into the air. Through the cloud of dust and falling debris, you can see a line of enemy cavalry charging across the plain. They wear tall plumed helmets of polished steel and breastplates of deepest crimson. In the wake of the fireball, they pour through the breach in the barricade and attack the stunned defenders. They are a merciless foe who give and expect no quarter. Your attention is caught by the sound of pounding hooves fast approaching from your right. You turn and see an enemy horseman spurring his horse straight towards you, with his battle lance leveled at your chest. You can stand and fight, or run back to the watchtower. I don't know how we can outrun a charging horseman, so I think it would be better to fight. We're able to heal 2 endurance points before that fight. 1 actually. So, the Basagonian horseman. The horseman is charging at you very swiftly. You will only be able to fight for 1 round of combat before the momentum of his attack carries him past you. Basagonian horseman with a combat skill of 20. That means a +8 combat ratio. And he has 28 endurance points. I doubt we'll be able to kill this man. The decisive round. 8. +8, which means no damage against 16. If you lose more endurance points than your enemy, it's not the case. If your enemy loses more endurance points than you, which is the case, 20. Your blow has unhorsed the bandit. He falls to the ground heavily, shattering his lance beneath him. He staggers to his feet and raises the hinged eye shield of his helm. He stares at you and smiles wickedly, exposing a jagged line of blackened teeth. He spits his battle cry and runs towards you, unsheathing a broadsword as he closes in. You can fight the warrior or evade his attack. I think that we should meet him in battle. Be done with him. You are in combat with a Vasagonian horseman who is now unhorsed and fighting on foot. You cannot evade his warrior and you must fight him to the death. He has a lower combat skill though. Still at 29 endurance point. Combat skill 17, which means a combat ratio of 11. And he has 24 endurance points left. Should be less actually. We did 16 damage, but well. Yes, he healed himself by falling underground. Right. 6. One damage against 16. Second round. 5. 1 against 14. Dead. Two endurance points left. You run half-crouched to the barricade and prise a bow from the hand of a dead soldier. You have spotted the leader of the bandit cavalry. He is a tall, dark-skinned warrior with a thin chiseled nose. He is riding his horseman at the foot of the stone watchtower. You know you must kill him before he can regroup his troops, or Deval and his hard-pressed soldiers will be ridden down and mercilessly slaughtered. You notch an arrow and draw back the bowstring. The straining cord bites sharply into your fingers as carefully you take aim. Pick a number from the random number table. If you have the Kai discipline of weapon skill, any weapon, add 2. We do. So 3 plus 2, it's 5. If it's 4, 7, turn to 323. Doesn't sound like a kill shot. You release the arrow and it whistles through the air to bury itself deeply in the mail-clad shoulder of the bandit leader. You hear his scream of pain ring out above the din of battle. But even though he is badly wounded, he still attempts to rally soldiers. You stoop to take another arrow, but, to your horror, the dead soldier's quiver is empty. Looking up, you see 2 dismounted Vesagonian horsemen clambering across the barricade towards you. You throw down your bow and run to a large water cask that is being defended by a stout-some lending sergeant. The ground around the cask is carpeted thickly with enemy dead. "Shoot the leader!" you command, pointing towards the enemy officer. The sergeant turns, aims and fires a bow with one swift and fluid movement. The arrow arcs through the battle smoke and pierces the officer's shiny breastplate. Slowly his cruel eyes flicker and close as he slips from the saddle with the shaft lodged deep in his heart. Well, someone else did the job.
To me! To me!
Captain Deval's voice booms out above the battle noise.
Rally to me, some lending!
The brave captain draws about him a shielded wedge of soldiers and charges into the flank of the horsemen. They reel and buckle as the shield wedge hews its way through their company. A Vesagonian herald, his crimson armor torn and his face flecked with blood, breaks free from the battle and sounds the retreat. You watch as the surviving bandits spur their mounts to the gallop, desperate now to escape through the ragged hole in the barricade. Gripped by panic and fatigue, they ride through their own foot soldiers who are advancing to support them. The infantry falter under this unexpected onslaught and quickly their ranks collapse as the cavalry ride them down. Captain Deval leads his soldiers to the barricade and directs a little volley of arrows into the shattered infantry. It is the last straw. They throw down their weapons and flee in panic, from the clouds of arrows raining down on them from out of the smoke-filled sky. A battle cry, proud and strident, pursues them across the plain. For Summerland! For Summerland! All around the barricade, the enemy are retreating in disorder. Bandit warhorns announce their withdrawal, exhorting their defeated warriors to flee the battlefield. A jubilant Captain Deval emerges from the war smoke, his eyes shining like bright jewels beneath the rim of his battered helmet.
We have triumphed, Lone Wolf! We have vanquished the foe!
All around you, the captain's guards are rebuilding the barricade and tending to their wounded comrades. It sorrows you to see some lending dead, but you take heart at how few they are beside the enemy's losses. The captain ushers you to the watchtower, where your wounds are clean and dressed with Lomspur. The herbs restore 6 endurance points. And we just passed through 2 sections without combat, so that's 29 plus 6, 35. We're back at full endurance point. We have beaten this foe, though I fear it is but a temporary reprieve, says the captain, his face now composed and somber.
The sacrifice of Baron Vanalon's daughter must be stopped if we are to avoid catastrophe, for our strength will not avail us against any foe freshly risen from the grave. The words of the verse flood into your mind, and a chill runs down your spine as you realize what may lie ahead. In 3 days' time, when the moon is full, Baraka will sacrifice the Baron's daughter at the buried temple of Macken, a sacrifice that will unleash the dead of Macken Gorge. You know you must do everything possible to prevent the sacrifice from taking place. "50 miles due south of Rhiannon, the ruined city of Macken teeters on the brink of the infamous Macken Gorge. A cold sweat breaks out upon your brow as you contemplate the difficulty of your mission, for you are separated from your goal by miles of enemy-held territory. There is a small flicker of hope from which you draw some comfort. With the enemy in confusion and retreat, your chances of success will be far higher now than they were before battle. Before you set off on your perilous mission, Captain Duval offers you the choice of the following equipment and provisions. If you do not have a backpack, you are outfitted with one by Captain Duval. Enough food for 3 meals, but we can take only one. A rope, we already have one. Unless we trade our long rope for a rope, which takes less space. A potion of Lumspur, a sword or a spear. Let's need to go into Macken Gorge, maybe. Not sure a long rope will help or not. The torch might be helpful too. Not sure that the pick could be useful anymore since we're out of the mine, so we could take 2 meals instead of the pick. And a third one, the space. And keep the long rope, just in case. We'll take the spear too, actually, since we've given back Devil's sword. In case a second weapon could be useful. Or a third if we count the summoned sword. Right? We're now in Rhiannon. Going into the Macken Gorge. Near the ruins of Macken. Like a really perilous journey ahead. Dusk soon enshrouds the beleaguered outpost of Rhiannon. Make use of the cover of the encroaching darkness to cross the body-strewn plain towards the south. An old highway trails off to Macken, but it is choked with Vesagonian warriors. They stand about in sullen groups, tending their wounded and brooding on their defeat. However, even demoralized and dejected, these warriors are still deadly foes. It will be too dangerous to risk passing through their ranks, so you must use the forest to conceal your passage around them. 2 options. We can either venture through the trees to the right of the highway, or pass through the trees to the left. So everyone knows what we need to do. Going to the left.
forest is patrolled by bandits, but they seem to take little interest in their guard duties and you find it easy to avoid them in the dark. Then, by chance, you come across a small log cabin hidden deep in the woods. A candle flickers at the window and its door is ajar. Choices: we can enter the hut or not enter the hut. Strong chances that there are enemies inside the hut, actually, since it's enemy territory. So I think we should not enter the hut. The one instance that the hut isn't a good idea. Quickly, you leave the hut behind and press on through the trees. By morning, you have reached the edge of the forest. Staring out across the fields of tall crops, you see a small village resting at the base of a shallow valley. The fields are only separated by narrow tracks, which are alive with flying insects hovering in swarms. You're walking along the track when suddenly you spot bandits ahead. They're wandering idly up the track towards you, their spears slung casually over their shoulders. You possess an onyx medallion. I don't think we have that. Nope. You have the Kai spin of camouflage and you have reached the Kai rank of Guardian. It's the case. So that's what we'll... Lifting your feet high, you step into the tall crops, taking care to part them first with your hands. You allow the stalks to close again behind your back before you crouch down and hold your breath. You have completely vanished from sight. It is as if the stalks have never been disturbed. The bandits amble past barely inches from where you hide, and they are oblivious to your presence. When you are sure they have gone, you emerge from the crops and hurry away. You bypass a village with orange toa woods cabins and stone walls and climb through the tall fields toward a wooded ridge. Beyond the ridge, you enter thick forest and discover a bubbling freshwater stream. You drink deeply and realize how hungry you are. You must eat a meal here or lose 3 endurance points. I guess that we can hunt, since not said that we can't. As night falls, you reach the city of Maken. The gaunt, weed-infested ruins of this shattered city are spread like a vast graveyard and bathed in the eerie light of a near-full moon. A sound fills the air like the wailing of lost souls. It is the cry of Maken Gorge. It has been nearly 2 days since you last slept and fatigue begins to overwhelm you. Drawing your Kai cloak close about your shoulders, you settle down to sleep. You will need all your strength for the daunting task that lies ahead. Dawn arrives, rain-swept and gloom-laden. A pall of drizzle hangs over the ghost city and the gruesome discord of the wailing winds of Maken Gorge make you feel deeply uneasy. You watch and wait, your Kai cloak drawn close about your shoulders to keep out the unwholesome damp air. It was here, during the age of the Black Moon, that King Ulnar I of Summerlon killed the mightiest of the Dark Lords, Lord Vashna. In mortal combat upon the very brink of the abyss, the Dark Lord was slain by Ulnar's sword, the Summer Sword. It is said that his death cry when he fell will echo through the gorge, until the day rises to wreak his vengeance on Summerland and the House of Ulnar. Your stomach tightens when you consider that today could be that very day. For 5 hours you observe and take in every detail of the ruined city. You may wish to note that you have visited the ruins of Maken for future reference. Alright. Over and over, the first line of the strange verse keeps repeating itself in your mind. When the full moon shines o'er the temple deep. Clearly the temple must be located somewhere underground, and there must be an entrance to it, but where? You study every crack in the broken ground and eliminate all but two possibilities. The first is a crypt door guarded by two Vesagonian warriors, and the second is a flight of marble steps which descend into the grey earth between two columns of fractured stone pillars. So two options. Either attempt to enter the subterranean temple by way of the guarded crypt door, or enter via the unguarded marble steps. Some more stealthy to enter via the unguarded marble steps, but why is it unguarded? I'm not sure about that. There might be monsters actually inside the unguarded tunnel. Well, it's best to not draw attention to us, I think, right now, so the enemy isn't alerted to our presence yet. Let's go into the unguarded steps at 270. The rain and the gloom hide your approach, and you are able to reach the marble stairs unseen. The steps are overgrown with mold and weeds, but a path has been trod through them that leads down into the darkness of a huge underground vault. If you possess a torch, still do. You possess a culty fire sphere, but the first option is a torch, so I think we should take the torch because it's the first in row. The torch burns fiercely for just a few seconds before it sputters and dies. You try to relight it, but it is hopeless. It simply will not burn. Okay. So we lost the torch. Sheep stuck. Or does it count for the other torch that we haven't noted on our sheet actually? It says in your backpack. Okay, so that's the one that's gone. If you possess other torches in your backpack, you will also discover that for some mysterious reason you are currently unable to light them either. Oh, okay. Cheap torches. If you possess a cult fire sphere, we do. So try plan B. You break open the two halves of your cult's fire sphere and all the flaming spheres above your head as you advance deeper into the vault. Gasp as you spot a hideous black-skinned creature perched on a rail near the ceiling. Dull, satanic eyes follow your every move, and its mouth opens and closes as if it is shouting silent curses. Suddenly, the demoniac glides down from its perch and attacks. If you possess the summer sword, turn to 34. Well, like I thought, there's a monster guarding that place. The creature's body is washed by the shimmering golden light of your sword. A look of terror twists its ghoulish face and it hurls itself upward to avoid your deadly sword blow. You brace yourself for another onslaught, but it never comes. Your silent attacker is no longer in this chamber. It has escaped into a fissure in the ceiling. Sheathing your divine blade, you prepare to continue on your way. You notice a low portal set in the wall of the vault. It leads to a long and narrow corridor. Two options. Either pass through the low portal and along the corridor beyond, or leave the vault and attempt to enter the temple way of the guarded crypt door, so the other path with the guards. Should simply continue to where we are right now. The corridor ends at a flight of steps that descends 100 feet into the earth. At the bottom, a short passage leads to a junction where a tunnel runs from north to south. To the north, you can see a torchlit cavern with what appear to be observation slits carved into the wall. To the south, a passage leads towards a low balcony. You have the Kai discipline of tracking. We do. Thanks to your discipline, you established that the Macan Gorge is located to the south. It may be the best way to find Madelon and prevent her sacrifice. Return to the previous section to make your choice. South, the passage towards a low balcony, or investigate the torchlit cavern. Actually, maybe we could see through the slits in the cavern. But let's follow the tracking. Last time we didn't follow what our Kai discipline said. It ended with all the rangers being killed inside the tavern in an ambush. So, should go south, I think. An empty feeling grips your stomach as you stare upon the altar, an inner sanctum of the subterranean temple. Your Kai senses burn as if every nerve in your body is screaming a warning to flee from this evil chamber. Huge braziers of molten metal encircle a black altar upon which lies fair Madelon, the daughter of Baron Vanaland. She seems to be entranced, her breathing is slow and shallow. Beyond the altar lie two massive doors, a gigantic skull engraved upon their black stone surface. Out of your view, another door opens and a procession of red-cloaked priests enter the temple. Their heads are covered and they each carry strange amulets of carved black stone. They file past the altar, depositing the amulets in a circle around the young girl's body, and then file out again in total silence. Then you hear the sound of a distant drumbeat. Steadily it grows louder and nearer. The measured steps of steel-shod boots resound in its wake. Baraka is approaching. Baraka carries the stench of death and decay about him. He strides into the temple in his steel-shod boots of Gurga's hide, and slams shut the huge stone door with frightening ease. He stands in silence before pushing open the huge black doors engraved with the menacing skulls. Suddenly, a gale force wind sweeps through the temple, and your ears are filled with terrible scream. Beyond the open doors, a pier of stone juts into the abyss of Macan Gorge. You are staring into the Chasm of Doom. Baraka turns away from the windswept pier and walks slowly towards the altar. From a hidden scabbard he removes a twisted black dagger and holds its stiletto blade to the light. An evil blue flame runs up and down the black steel spike, flickering wildly in the ice-cold winds of Macan Gorge. The sacrifice is about to begin. Two options. We can draw our weapon and attack Baraka, or try and distract his attention from the altar. without attacking him. The clever way is often the best way. We're full HP though. Let's be clever. Let's try to be clever here. Hold your blade, Baraka. Her life is not yours for the taking. Your words ring out above the howling wind. The renegade noble turns to face you. His cruel laugh is piercing as your command. He advances towards you, the flame-licked dagger held high in his mailed fist. You draw your weapon, and resolutely you enter the temple. Can enter in combat with the warrior lord, or try to free Madelon first. Sounds like quite hard to do with the guy there. But if we don't try to free her, maybe we'll simply kill her outright. I don't think there's any other choice than facing him in battle at this point. Boss fight. Baraka draws a razor-sharp scimitar, holding its mirror-like blade in his other hand. Then he advances towards you with deadly grace. You can sense his warrior prowess and feel his ice cold nerve. Your fight will be hard, and it will be to the death. If you possess a flask of holy water, we do. You grasp the flask firmly, take careful aim, and then hurl it straight and true. Baraka stares open-mouthed as the container shatters against the haft of the black steel dagger, and there is a sudden explosion of searing white flame. The heat scorches your face, and you are thrown to the floor by the force of the blast. Lose 3 endurance points. With horror, you stare as Baraka, his arm torn from his body by the searing blast, staggers backward across the temple. His eyes have been destroyed by the explosion, and now he claws in agony at his sightless eyes with his remaining hand. You watch in silence as he stumbles through the black skull doors, staggers on the pier, and plummets into the Magan Gorge. Greedily is swallowed by the Chasm of Doom. Well, that was the boss fight. I'm kind of curious to see how tough the fight will have been. With the summer sword at 122. Combat skill 25. It will have been anyway a +3 combat ratio, endurance only 29. Oh, but he uses Mind Blast, so the combat skill will have been reduced by 4. Only 2 with Mind Shield, though. So it will have been +1 combat ratio. And he's immune to Mind Blast himself, so that will have been a -1 combat ratio fight. Not sure it will have been really that tough. The -1. Will have need to roll 4 or 5 and higher. Be sure to beat him. Well, like I thought the holy water was quite powerful. Maybe a bit too powerful, actually. It was a kind of holy hand grenade from the Worms game in this instance. Well, that was the boss fight. As Baraka dies, the wind suddenly rises in pitch and intensity, filling the temple with a mournful cry of despair. You feel the chill, malevolent spirit of Dark Lord Vashna engulfing you in an icy embrace, but you sense that it is powerless to harm you. The sacrifice has been foiled, and the spirit of Vashna is doomed to lament for a victory that might have been. Lying on the black temple floor is the dagger of Vashna. As you pick it up and tuck it into your belt, mark it in your action chart as a special item. Dagger of Vashna. Sounds like something to not give to our enemies later down the road. The evil blue flame flickers and dies. As long as you possess this evil blade, Dark Lord Vashna and his legion of dead warriors will remain imprisoned in the Chasm of Doom. The dreadful powers of the dagger fill your mind with horrific visions. If you decide to carry it on future lone wolf adventures, instead of leaving it behind in the safekeeping of your monastery, using it in combat will add 3 points to your combat skill, but reduce your endurance total by 3 while it's carried. This detrimental effect does not apply to the present adventure, might be lowered once you reach higher levels of Kai training. You vow never to let it fall into the wrong hands as long as you live. Okay. Free combat skill. -3. Should we left it into the safekeeping of the monastery, the rebuilt monastery, though? Might be more safe ourselves in the future. That's something to see in the next adventures. You free Madelon from the altar and carry her through the corridors of the temple that lead up to the surface. As you emerge into the moonlit ruins, an astounding sight greets your eyes. Baraka's warriors are running from the ghost city in all directions, closely pursued by an army of cavalrymen. The light of the full moon and the gathering torches that these soldiers carry illuminates the sun crest that bedecks their tunics. Word must have reached Holmgard, for they are the Sumlending army, led by King Olnar V himself. Your countryfolk praise your courage and daring, their strident cheers drowning the baleful cry of Mac and Gorge, for once again you have proved yourself a true hero of Summerland. As you deliver Madelon into the waiting arms of her loving father, his overwhelming joy fills you with a sense of great achievement. Indeed, you're worthy of the title Kai Warrior. You have succeeded in your perilous mission, but the epic saga of Lone Wolf, the last of the Kai, is far from over. A new and deadly challenge awaits you in the distant desert realm of Vasagonia. If you possess the courage of a true Kai, you can face this challenge in the next Lone Wolf adventure, Shadow on the Sand. Next week, same time, same channel.